Yeah.
Who has lived in Miami for at least 10 years?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so who was born in Miami?
Really bored.
Going down a little bit. And I'll give you one more because we're going to get a few more hands down, including Mike's. Who went to college in Miami? Wow, not bad, not bad.
Who went to FIU?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Thank you, FIU again. So, Mike Pappas, CEO of the Kai's company.
I'm really an SOB, the son of the broker.
So Mike is born and raised in Miami, went to private high school in Miami. I'm not going to say what high school this is. It was a competitor to my high school. He was second later.
It wasn't Columbus that's playing in the Orange Bowl this weekend. How about the, I mean, come on, don't know that. I mean, if you talk about Miami and having a game, this is as good as it gets. Mendoza and University of Miami. So you got to be very proud of anybody from Columbus. I'm not a Columbus grad, but you ought to really, if you aren't a Columbus grad, you sure have heard that they have some players in this game.
So, born and raised in Miami, went to private high school here. We lost him for a few years at Wake Forest, but came back and in 1980 became a sales associate at the Kai's company. And so I don't miss it. I'm just going to read, what the community feels about him over the last few years and so forth, and the accomplishments he's had. White Beetle Legacy Award, Real Estate Up and Comer by Price Waterhouse, CCIM designation, Best Deal of the Year, South Florida Magazine, Industry Leader by the Miami Realtors, National Top 200 Most Powerful People in Real Estate by Swain Poll. You remember that one?
Yeah.
Most Influential Business Leader by the Florida Trend. Top 250 Power Leaders, South Florida Business Journal. In 2019, named Real Estate Newsmaker by Luminary. RIS Media Hall of Fame, well deserved. And again, Ultimate CEO Hall of Fame, South Florida Business Journal.
He's your who's through. So that's it.
So let's just start off real quickly. Great career, great time here in Miami for many, many years. You have so many individuals, employees, friends, corporations that have admired and looked up to you. How does it feel looking back a little bit on this?
It's funny how it doesn't feel good. I don't really like this at this stage of the game, but to see Nick Bussell and here for Century, we served on a board together a number of years, another bank that he was involved in, and seeing the individuals here, it warms my heart because, seeing Paul White 20 years ago, we need to give him another round of applause. He's my generation. What I learned is that individuals in this room are those that are the doers, those that are committed, those that make the networks, and then the leadership in Florida that you all do have serving. So I really feel like I'm with you, and I applaud you. And it's that daily, not grind, but it's the daily commitment that then gives you a life of legacy. So my hat's off to you all, and I feel like we're partners in that. So that's how I feel.
So we're definitely going to pick Mike's brain a little bit about Miami past, Miami present, and his crystal ball Miami future, right? Which is really what we all want to hear. But a little bit about, the name, the brand name, the Kai's company has been around so long, so recognized. Myself was licensed at 19. I remember interviewing with a few groups in the 1980s. They were it, man. The Kai's company was, Jose Ucadea, the founder of my firm, who I think is in the audience somewhere. He worked with you guys for a few years, so shout out to Jose.
Yeah, Jose.
And so forth. So the little tidbit that I've researched, Ken Kai started this in 1926, before hurricane?
February 1926 is the founding of our company in Miami. So how about that? So this year is our 100th anniversary. So I think we're good. We looked up, there was 135,000 people living in South Florida at the time, and now there's currently 6.5 million. So it really is a story of picking the right spot early on and staying the course. We talked about this earlier. Alan Morris Sr., many of you know the Alan Morris Company, was Ken Kai's nephew, and he brought him down to run the company in the 50s, and after the Depression and after when the boom was starting to come back after the war, and then he opened up the development arm, and then that left an opportunity for my father, who joined in 1962. So we're just, to be honest with you, we're stewards. We have 4,000 agents, we have 50 offices in South Florida, and we sold about almost $8 billion last year in closed business. So I think but we feel like we're partners. I see a lot of our agents here, and we are focused back on commercial. I'm a CCIM, Ron and Tony. Tony had a great year, and a lot of you there. So we're very bullish on South Florida. I always say, if you bought property in South Florida ever, all ships rise. And so even the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we have a demographic growth with limited land, and prices will continue to rise. So my story to you is, if you look at South Florida, I'll wrap it up, in Jupiter, where we are, down to Homestead, it's 118 miles. Everybody's heard me say this a little bit. So that's our tour. If you turn New York City to Montauk, it's 118 miles. If you look at the island of Long Island, it's 15, 20 miles. If you look at the Everglades and the ocean, it's 15, 20 miles. So a wise man 30, 40 years ago said, if you have limited land and demographic growth, prices will always rise. And I think that's what we are fortunate and blessed to be able to have here.
Quick 2-second commercial. So, want to thank Sonia Diaz, who was one of our board members at CCIM. She was really responsible for setting this up. I just kind of took over at some point, but we appreciate all the work and obviously the sponsorships of guys and so forth. So, moving on a little bit, just a little bit about your career. You started in 1980.
Right.
At some point, you purchased Kai's.
And again, I'm you. I mean, I feel like we're together. I happen to be the lucky sperm. I don't know if some people say that. You have the lottery, and then you have the sperm lottery, and then maybe you have the real lottery. And so I was the son involved with my father that I mentioned, and had Dr. Vladdy Golick's here. He was one of our early leaders in the company, and opened up his own branch. And so there's been a lot of incestuous nature within South Florida. But my dad was retiring and was holding on for us to come in. The market peaked in 80. You talked about a downturn, the dramatic change in 88. How many of you remember the RTC? And you want to say, you think this is a sluggish market? Prices went down 2/3 in commercial real estate. It was as disastrous in 90, 91 as it was for the residential market in 08. And so it was a terrible, the RTC, Lennar, that's how Lennar came out, bought $1 billion of bad debt at the time, and really launched them in the Rialto areas in those times. So that was the era that my dad was kind of coming through. They got into the syndication business, raised about $40 million, bought about $100 million of real estate, and then that syndication changed in 88, the tax laws changed, and then that whole market crashed. And so that's when I came in to my father and said, hey, in 1991, let's make a deal. And he was open with my brother to do it. But he always reminded me, he says, you didn't put any money down and you paid me off over 20 years, so it wasn't necessarily a good deal for me, but it was a good deal for us. So thank you very much.
So, question. In an environment, in an era where, especially businesses in South Florida, are being acquired by all the private equity, by the national firms and so forth, how have you survived those big offers I'm sure you've gotten over the last 10 years and so forth?
It's funny. I think we feel like we're a steward. It's not really mine. It's a 100-year-old company. I feel like it's somebody else's, and the good Lord has been good to us. And so I do think that we look at our employees. We have a mortgage company, a title company, insurance company. There's a lot of fun that we have together. We feel like we're big enough to compete with the big boys, but still a small boutique brokerage. We're closing on a firm in Fort Myers. We haven't been on the West Coast in a week. So we're excited about seeing if we can expand out and become more Florida-oriented. But I think realistically, it's not about It's really about the team and operating and enjoying the moment. I don't know about you guys, but how many of you get goosebumps when you do a deal? You don't get my dad used to say, if it's not in your veins and in your blood, and if it's not a thrill,
Fire in the gut.
then it's probably not for you. And so I still get the thrill of doing the deals and seeing our agents prosper and seeing them grow. And I'm not a guy that, my wife says, I have 5 kids now, I have 12 grandkids, and they all come, and my wife says, don't come home, because when you come home, you're on the phone and you're speaking so loud and you're disrupting everything else, so I don't have any place to go but to go to work. So.
Excellent, thank you. So, Ruben, thanks to Ruben, we started a CCIM podcast and have interviewed six or seven individuals. We actually interviewed an hour podcast with Michael, probably back in December. I think it's going live today, right, Ruben? I believe it's gonna go live today. Pretty neat.
It is. There we go. Testing 1, 2, 3. It is. We had an exciting time. So this is just a little glimpse of the full conversation that Tony and Mike and I and some of the others we had there in the room.
Well, I'm learning even when I'm walking around, seeing a lot of old friends. I said that there's no question that many of you, we're pure brokers. We list and sell, and I think we talk about Alan Morris that's a developer now doing great things. But many of you, how many of you are lending money? How many of you are investing for yourselves? How many are doing a little developments? Let's see that, because that's really what I feel in this room. And I'll say this in the sales aspect, you can sell anything. You can sell copiers and phones and cars, but if you're selling real estate, really I think the goal is to buy and own the real estate. And if you're able to do that over the long, Ken Rosen, I talked to him, he's still living, talk about, I don't know if he's a CCIM or not, but he's one of the great condo converters in the 70s and 80s, and he's 95 years old, written investment books on real estate, and he keeps saying, buy my book and give it to your people. I go, I think we're the only guy buying it. But at the end of the day, that was his mantra, if you can buy and invest, and over the long haul, get your trade that you really know and be able to move those dollars into that. I think that's really what can give you the sale off at the end. But we looked up the numbers. You guys know this. What's interesting me in the commercial market, let me say this to you, and we have a lot of agents, we have people that, a lot of people that don't do what they're supposed to do, and then there's a few that do. It's the 20-80 rule. 20% of our business is probably done by, 80% of our business is probably done by 20% of people, those that go to work. But it's not a hard business, but it's a business that no one really wants to do. So how many commercial properties do you think there are in Miami-Dade? Anybody know? Number of owned buildings by different people and institutions, what's the number of properties?
39,000.
40,000. In South Florida, there's less than 100,000. So when you think of it, you have the data, you have the information, you know the names and with data and AI. I'm sitting next to Mr. Berkowitz, a big developer. I can find everything out about him in what? 2 minutes. Because you got access now to information, and so once you get the information, once you have the data, once you have something to talk about, then it's really about connecting the dots. And I think what I would encourage you to do is I thought it was not a very optimistic report, but if you're an owner and you're struggling with the rates, and that's what Nick's coming in and the investors and the readjustments, but I'm talking to somebody else, he's buying notes. He's starting to get notes that he's coming in and discounting the notes. So from a broker standpoint, there's always opportunities. In fact, when there's more pain, there's more opportunity. No one's going to sell today at a 7% cap in Miami, which is what you need, because Nick, what's the rate on a commercial loan today? 6%? 6%. Would you do any better for me if I called? Yeah, okay. And you guys know that the cap rate matches the interest rates. When I started in the 80s, guess what the cap rates were? 10%, because the interest rate was 10%. Why did the cap rates get down to 3 and 4%? Because the interest rates got down to 3 and 4%. The problem is the cap rates haven't adjusted because people haven't accepted the new price, so you're going to get a flattening price for a while. But when there's strain, when there's a reset on the mortgage, then that's when the seller buys. And the seller sells and the buyer buys. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in this market if we engage and you sniff out those buyers and sellers that are out there. The problem is, out of 100, 5 will probably interact in the next year. You just don't know which 5 they are out of 100.
Mike, did you and Nick get together on that with the tailwind and interest rates? Because you're both bullish on Miami. Here we go, right?
Right. This is the question. It's an easy answer. And this Monroe doctrine that now we can't say the political things. How many of you think the South American, Central American strategy may help Miami? You know, I mean, I don't know if you're politically positive or negative about it, but whenever there's change, whenever there's adjustments, Miami is gonna be favored. And how many of you, this be a question, everybody that was not born in the US, raise your hand. So look around. So probably half the room, and so how many people, there's more non-born US citizens, or people living in Miami than born people living in Miami, meaning that they're outside. So I think if you get demographic growth, how many people from the Northeast? You know, I mean, we getting calls all day long, residentially and commercially, for people that are moving down from the Northeast, from Chicago, from California. So I think my dad, he would roll over his grave if he ever saw $1,000 a foot on commercial prices, let alone $2,000, $3,000 in residential prices. He would die if he saw $100 million deals today and $500 million today. What I can tell you is the $20 million today was the $5 million yesterday, and there's big commissions in those deals today, and those are still small mom and pop deals that are opportunities for you. So I'm very bullish on the market.
Thank you very much.
So what, for the broker, does that work?
So one final topic, because I think we're getting zinged out here. So obviously you have mentored and tutored and helped a tremendous amount of young individuals that have started specifically in the brokerage industry, but also everything else you said, investing and so forth. What are you telling your 25-year-olds that are coming in your door and have they're freshly out of college and have their
The
social
problem
license?
today is this. No, I mean, even here, we're here, but we're not here. And I don't.
That's all age groups, by the way.
Yeah, and I think the skill set that is needed is to listen, understand the needs and pain points of who you're talking to. This is what I learned, I'm not a good salesman, I'm really not. And Ron and
You guys believe that one?
No, I'm not. But I have a heart and desire to help those that I'm working with. And my goal is to try to find out what they want and help them accomplish that. Does that make sense? So I don't feel like I'm making anybody buy or sell, but there's a lot of people that want to buy or sell. There's a lot of agents that want to do well. And for those people, if I can hear and ask the right questions, let me understand your child, let me understand what you're looking for, what are your goals and needs, what are you really trying to accomplish here, how can I help you? And then not to be a pain in the tush, but to be a nudge to be able to get them to do it because everybody's busy. So once I get the commitment, I'm willing to respond and follow up because I know everybody will avoid you because they're busy, not because they don't want to do it. Does that make sense? And I'm going to help them accomplish their goals, and I'm going to feel good about it because in the long run, they create wealth, get to do what they want to do, and make it happen. So it's not that I'm selling anything. I think we're aligned, helping them accomplish their goals. So that's the
We can, Ruben, can we take one or two questions? So we can take.
So you need to talk to people, engage, get off the phone, quit texting to try new deals, pick up the phone, talk to people, solve problems, and don't avoid difficult things. What I've found is everybody doesn't want to do. You're getting paid to do the difficult things. When there's a problem, you're going, yes, they need me. If they didn't need you, I was worried about OfferPad and the internet and Open Door and everybody's going to go direct, but I am convinced in the bottom of my soul we're the last mile. They cannot do the deal without people interacting with them, helping them, guiding them, structuring through it, and that's why you get paid the big bucks. But realize that it takes the effort and the work to get to those big dollars as you come through with it all. So, sorry about that.
Excellent, thank you. Time for 2 questions?
Yeah.
Well, how about this? We can ask some questions with Mike in the back.
Okay, I'm out of here. I got me going. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike.